I was born and raised about an hour straight west of Detroit, and I moved to Florida in the summer of 10th grade, going into 10th grade. And as we got down here, we fell in love with this church. What really drew me in initially was the fact that I saw people my own age, teenagers, having fun in church. They were actually enjoying themselves, and I could see the fruit of God in their life. And so I was 16 years old when I first really came to my faith, and my life was turned around by it. Well, September 11th happened. Up until that point, I had planned on going to college and becoming a doctor. And the first week of my senior year, I had this change of heart that just turned everything. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I was supposed to go into the military at that point. I had realized in my own young years of experience being overseas that there is no place in the world that affords an individual so much individual freedoms and rights, and I just felt like I'd be a hypocrite if I were to go on enjoying all this freedom I had without contributing just a few years of my life to helping preserve and further that cause of freedom. I enlisted in the United States Army as an infantry soldier. I deployed in 2006 to Afghanistan. I had just gotten married in December, so my wife and I, we really only had 3 months together before I deployed. Our primary duty was reconnaissance. We were a scout sniper platoon. We were the guys who had to climb up 1,000 vertical feet, and you're sitting at an elevation of 12 or 13,000 feet up on a mountaintop for 2 or 3 days, and there wasn't really any place you could go to church. But one of the things that really helped me is back then the video iPods had just come out, and Calvary Chapel had their podcast system up and going. That iPod became my church, and it was just that right message at the right time, that it was what I needed to hear to help me continue going as I'm over here in Afghanistan fighting this war. On April 18th of 2006, we had gone up over a hill, and then we came down, and right at the bottom where the hill flattened out, there were a double stack of anti-tank mines that were buried in the road. And it blew up the vehicle, threw it about 10 feet to the side of the road. I mean, you see the pictures, and it's crazy that not only did nobody die, I walked away from this vehicle without a scratch on me. I had an email from my mother that day. She pretty much said, "Brian, a couple days ago, I had this strange, intense feeling to pray for your protection." Just a few months later, I was in the front passenger seat of the lead vehicle of about a 15 vehicle convoy, and a minivan had gotten in front of us and slowed down. My driver got right up next to him as we're passing him, and I'm in the passenger seat here. And so I'm probably within just about arm's reach of this vehicle. As we get right up next to this vehicle, the entire minivan exploded. I don't have any recollection of that happening. The first thing I do recall after regaining consciousness is that I was lying in a ditch on the side of the road. I had a fountain of blood pouring out of my face. I was face down. I couldn't find my weapon. My helmet was no longer on my head, and I had no idea why I was laying there. My face and neck were full face and neck 2nd degree burns. Both of my hands were full thickness 3rd degree. And they got me on the helicopter, and they got me to Kandahar Airfield, and I was laying there, and I felt something inside me more or less say something to the extent of, "Brian, life will never be the same." For the negative, obviously, is our natural inclination to think in a situation like that. But it's actually turned out to be for the better. I arrived at Brooke Army Medical Center on the night of July 27th, and I saw my wife for about 3 minutes. I got to say hello to her. And then the nurses took me into the shower room to clean me up, is what they said. Well, at that point, him and about 3 or 4 other nurses, they all took out razor blades, and they began shaving and tearing and ripping the burned, charred skin off of both of my hands, my face, and my neck, while I was still conscious. And that was the only time in my life I ever prayed to die. It was so much pain, there was nothing worth living through in that moment. But I thank God for unanswered prayers, because He didn't answer that prayer, and I didn't know what I was asking. And He had a plan through it all. About 5 months after my injury, I met my mentor, a guy named Dave Reaver, who was horribly injured in Vietnam, and he started putting me up on stages. This is like non-traditional rehabilitation to talk about what happened. And I got up and I pretty much said, "Hi, I'm Brian. I got blown up. Guess I'm still here for a reason." Not what I call inspiring, but I saw other people's lives change for the better. And that did something for me that no pill or no element of medicine ever did for me. People were coming to a knowledge of God who had rejected God and hated life, and now they have this ambiance about them, and just the Spirit of God you can see in their life and how they were changed by it, because I was simply willing to talk about it. So I learned how to talk about what happened. After 14 months at Brooke Army Medical Center, I was medically put out of the military. I have a beautiful wife who stuck with me throughout the entire ordeal, and I also have 2 children. I have a son named Blake and a daughter named Kaylee. And my life at this point, I think, has just become a living testament to the incredible power of God and what He can do through our circumstances, and the ministry I received in those early years, and as well as the ministry that this church has had in my life during that time in Afghanistan. It did make all the difference.